The public impeachment investigation continues with more Trump administration officials speaking out about what they've experienced under his leadership and the clear demands that Trump had when it came to digging up dirt on his political rivals. Now today, David Holmes testified. He's a diplomat in the US Embassy in Kiev, and he testified in this open impeachment hearing to shed light on the smear campaign that Marie Jovanovic underwent as a result of shady Ukrainian forces who she was actually investigating. So let's take a look at some portions of his opening statement.
Beginning in March 2019, the situation at the embassy and in Ukraine changed dramatically. Specifically, the three priorities of security, economy, and justice, and our support for Ukrainian democratic resistance to Russian aggression became overshadowed by a political agenda promoted by former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani and a cadre of officials operating with a direct channel to the White House. That change began with the emergence of press reports critical of Ambassador Jovanovic and machinations by then Prosecutor General Lutz Anka and others to discredit her. In mid-March 2019, an embassy colleague learned from a Ukrainian contact that Mr. Lutz Anka had complained that Ambassador Jovanovic had, quote, destroyed him with her refusal to support him until he followed through with his reform commitments and ceased using his position for personal gain. In retaliation, Mr. Lutz Anka made a series of unsupported allegations against Ambassador Jovanovic, mostly suggesting that Ambassador Jovanovic improperly used the embassy to advance the political interests of the Democratic Party.
So understand that Lutsenko was part of the corruption in Ukraine that Marie Jovanovic was trying to get under control. And so she wasn't willing to give him what he wanted unless he proved that he followed through on the reforms that he clearly was not happy about. So rather than follow through with the reforms to root out corruption, he decided, no, I'm gonna go ahead and pursue a smear campaign against Marie Jovanovic. So that's where it really started. And Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump's personal attorney, helped to carry out that smear campaign.
So there's a twist here that is hard to discern right now because it seems like there's two different sets of people trying to get Jovanovic out. So there's the Trump angle where he's like, well, if she's not backing my play on doing an investigation on the Bidens that has nothing to do with foreign American national security interests, I want her out. But Trump had to get convinced to that position, so that's really interesting. So there's another set of folks, and this is partly why Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman have been arrested, who wanted Jovanovic out, but not because of the Biden investigation at all. They have a different motive.
Yeah, they do have a different motive. So remember, Marie Jovanovic was one of the US diplomats who was working to root out corruption in Ukraine. Now there are shady Russian-backed dishonest actors in Ukraine who were the target of people like Marie Jovanovic, right?
Yeah.
So these individuals want Marie Jovanovic out, and they worked with Rudy Giuliani and his other business associates, Fruman and Parnas, to put out this smear campaign and get her out, because once she's out, then they don't have to deal with the corruption investigations that were making them uncomfortable, that were calling them out. You get the picture.
Now, look, guys, so there's a couple of connective tissues here. The main one being Russia. So Parnas and Fruman are arrested. And the reason they're arrested is not because they were part of the Biden plot, but because they funneled foreign money into our elections. They got it to our politicians, et cetera. And their mission was to get Jovanovic, our US ambassador to Ukraine, fired. Now, prosecutors have not clarified which foreign government wanted that done, but the foreign government most likely to have wanted that done is the Russians, because the Russians didn't like that Jovanovic was actually defending Ukraine and US national interests in Ukraine. So now we're gonna see if it really is the Russians, presumably in their trial. And Parnas is cooperating and saying, yes, Trump wanted us to do X, Y, and Z, but he's not yet saying, yeah, I'm guilty and I got money from a foreign government. He's not saying that, okay? So there's a lot we have to figure out there. But the connective tissue is, if they go to Trump and they say, hey, look, the Russians want her out and you want her out because she's not helping you do your political hatchet job on Biden, that's where Trump might be like, how many more wins can I get out of this? I help the Russians and I go after Biden once I get rid of her. So Trump makes the ultimate decision to get rid of her, but there's two different plots here.
So in this next video, David Holmes talks about what the allegations were against Marie Jovanovic, and he debunks them. So take a look.
Mr. Lutz Anka also claimed that he had never received $4.4 million in US funds intended for his office, and that there was a tape of a Ukrainian official saying that he was trying to help Hillary Clinton win the 2016 election. Finally, Mr. Lutz Anka publicly claimed that Ambassador Jovanovic had given him a do not prosecute list containing the names of her supposed allies, an allegation the State Department called an outright fabrication, and that Mr. Lutz Anka later retracted. Mr. Lutz Anka said that as a result of these allegations, Ambassador Jovanovic would face serious problems in the United States. Public opinion polls indicated that Ukrainians generally did not believe Mr. Lutz Anka's allegations. And on March 22nd, President Poroshenko issued a statement in support of Ambassador Jovanovic.
So again, it was a clear smear campaign by the very people that Marie Jovanovic had been investigating and very same people she was holding accountable for actual corruption. And so every time you hear Donald Trump argue that his demands for these investigations are not about his own political agenda, it's really about doing something about corruption in Ukraine, that is not the case. He did the exact opposite. The US policy in Ukraine was actually working to root out corruption. Donald Trump's actions reverse that.
Yeah,
okay?
So again, Jovanovic is a bulwark against corruption. That's why forces within Ukraine, potentially connected to Russia, want her out because she actually wants to investigate the corruption. Trump hears this and goes, well, I don't really want to investigate the corruption. I want to do the corruption. I want to make sure that I can corrupt them into investigating Biden. So he's like, oh, you're investigating corruption in Ukraine. You're out, fired right away, okay? And so, look, every part of their defense is absurd. And almost everything they say is the exact opposite. I covered it in a video yesterday. I'm sure you guys covered it on the show yesterday. But Gordon Sondland comes out and just crucifies them. Says it was definitely quid pro quo, basically bribery. And Trump comes out and goes, vindicated. Okay, all right, I mean, I don't know what to do with that. Okay, you live on a different planet. On this planet, you wanted corruption in Ukraine. You weren't fighting corruption in Ukraine.
Now, finally, I want to get to Giuliani's role in all of this. Giuliani was talked about quite a bit in today's testimony, especially in David Holmes' opening statement. So in this next clip, he details how Rudy Giuliani helped with the effort to smear Marie Jovanovic. Take a look.
On April 20th, I was present for Ambassador Jovanovic's third and final meeting with then candidate Zelensky, ahead of his landslide victory in the runoff election the next day. As in her two prior meetings that I also attended, they had an entirely cordial, pleasant conversation and signaled their mutual desire to work together. However, the negative narratives about Ambassador Jovanovic had gained currency in certain segments of the United States press. On April 26th, Ambassador Jovanovic departed for Washington, D.C., where she learned that she would be recalled early. The barrage of allegations directed at Ambassador Jovanovic, a career ambassador, is unlike anything I have seen in my professional career.
So that's one other thing that keeps coming up, not just in this particular testimony, but testimony given by other officials. They keep arguing, hey, you know what? We are career diplomats. We have been working in this space for quite some time. And what we experienced under the Trump administration is incredibly unusual. It's unprecedented. This is not normal activity. It's not normal behavior.
Yeah, that about describes Donald Trump's entire first term in office. Oh, 222 on it being first as opposed to second.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, so look, you guys got it. Jovanovic fired for doing the right thing. Everyone in the State Department that knows her backs her up. Almost no one is against her, with the notable exception of Giuliani and his goons, and of course Donald Trump, who hates the idea of fighting corruption.
Right, and I have to show you one final clip from his opening testimony, because in it, there was an interesting, I guess, anecdote about what Gordon Sondland had said about Rudy Giuliani and his involvement in all of this.
Over the following months, it became apparent that Mr. Giuliani was having a direct influence on the foreign policy agenda that the three amigos were executing on the ground in Ukraine. In fact, at one point during a preliminary meeting of the inaugural delegation, someone wondered aloud why Mr. Giuliani was so active in the media with respect to Ukraine. My recollection is that Ambassador Sondland stated, quote, "Damn it, Rudy, every time Rudy gets involved, he goes and F's everything up."
And that's true even today. Rudy Giuliani, in the middle of this impeachment investigation, has decided to go on Fox News. I'm sorry, not on Fox News, on The Blaze, to talk to Glenn Beck about how he's still trying to help Trump dig up dirt on the Bidens.
Unbelievable. The three amigos, by the way, are Volker, Sondland, and Energy Secretary Rick Perry. But even within the circus that is the Trump administration, there are layers of corruption, right? And so Sondland is actually really corrupt. He got in by giving Trump $1 million and was okay with generally doing this extraordinary thing where they try to pressure a foreign government to help Donald Trump. Later when he's caught, he's like, I don't want to go to jail, I'm really rich. So okay, fine, we actually were doing a quid pro quo. But even for all the people involved in that scam, the very outer edge was Rudy Giuliani. And even the other crooks were like, oh man, I don't want to deal with Giuliani at all. That guy's a total mess. So what you're seeing on TV is not strategy. He's actually a mess.
Absolutely. As
John Bolton described him, he's a hand grenade.
Not the right person to do your drug deal with.
Apparently not.
And that's what Bolton referred to all of this as a drug deal that he did not want to get involved in.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.